So I came across this video of a traffic stop where the person being pulled over is not cooperative with the police, and it didn't end very well for the driver of that vehicle. So I'm going to play the video and then we'll talk about it along with some other incidents of officer-involved shootings after.
The direction that this encounter goes is 100% in your hands.
Sir, Utah Code, United States Code,
Okay.
is a corporate policy
Okay.
in which you have to be contracted and to be required to follow it. Unless you
Okay.
can provide me a contract with my wet ink signature on it saying that I'm required to follow it,
Okay.
then there's
I'm obligated. Do you want to identify yourself to me, or do you want to go a different route? Wonderful. Do you have a driver license as well?
I am not giving you jurisdiction.
Okay.
Do not stop. Do not detain. You are not allowed to stop me.
Let me see that.
On your list
I didn't see what you just tried to show me. Can you show that to me again? Step
If
out
you
of this
try and
vehicle
force
right
me,
now.
Then we're going to have an issue where you're
Step
gonna
out
have
of the
to
car right now.
Don't step out of the car. We're going to break the window and pull you out.
So you can see that was a white dude, or appeared to be a white dude, who was not cooperating and ended up in a shootout with the police. And I showed that because this is what police officers go through every day. Now, people want to get mad at police when they kill somebody that they shouldn't have. And I get that. But there are so many incidents like this that happen all the time. And police officers just have a split second to decide what to do. And I think I wanted people to see or hear some stories about what police officers go through in a normal day. So I looked up some recent officer-involved shootings that resulted in the death of the subject. And I'm just going to go through a few of them. This first one happened March 20th in Rochester, New York. And a man believed to be involved in at least 2 recent gun incidents was fatally shot by police. The investigation started Friday night after someone fired multiple shots from a vehicle into a closed business. Around 10 p.m., no one was injured. Later that night, officers located the involved vehicle unoccupied and recovered 2 weapons from the vehicle, which was towed. Around 7 a.m. Monday, police handled a road rage incident that traveled through Brighton, ending on Hemingway Drive, where someone fired several shots and struck a vehicle. Police linked the suspect vehicle back to the same Milbourne Street address. 2 hours later, officers attempted to stop the suspect vehicle and led police on a brief chase. Officers quickly called the pursuit on Interstate 590 due to unsafe speeds. Okay, so they stopped pursuing them. The same man returned to Milbourne Street just before 1 p.m., and when deputies attempted to stop him on nearby Vassar Street, he displayed a large hunting-style knife and threatened deputies. A deputy fired 1 shot as the man ran. After a half-mile chase through yards in the neighborhood, the man pointed a shotgun at police, who fired at him multiple times. Before he was shot, police officers and deputies located about 15 feet away repeatedly told the man to drop the gun. The man had returned to his car during the foot chase, retrieved a bag, and ultimately produced a gun from the bag. The man was struck by several bullets and was pronounced dead at the scene. So this was like an all-day event. They were chasing this guy around, and he was randomly shooting his gun off at people in places throughout the city that ultimately, in the end, led to him being shot by the police. On March 19th, in Glen, Virginia, a robbery suspect was shot when officers returned gunfire during a foot pursuit. So this guy was a robbery suspect who fired at police. They fired back, and he was a male teenager that was shot and killed. Now, Springville, Utah, the officer was actually injured in this as well as the suspect. A Springville man was shot and killed by police Sunday morning after shooting at officers who initially responded to a report of shots fired earlier in the morning. Police were originally dispatched to a report of shots fired before 5 a.m. The first caller reported hearing semi-auto rapid fire, and a second caller reported hearing 8 to 10 shots. Officers responded to the report, searching nearly for an hour without finding anything until they came across a car that had been struck a concrete barrier. That's when the man began firing at the officers as they checked on the crash. As the officer gets out of his vehicle, the driver or individual in the car starts shooting at the officer, who was struck in the leg. Another officer arrived at the same scene as seconds later. He approached from a different angle, and the gun exchange continued. It's not immediately clear how many shots were fired from either side. However, the shootout ended when police saw the man fall to the ground and stop moving. He was pronounced dead at the scene. So again, this guy in the car, the police are just coming to check on him, and he starts firing at them, and they return gunfire. And he ends up dead. In Hobart, Indiana, this guy, while on the scene, officers heard a shot fired from inside a residence. Occupants from inside who had exited the home indicated there was a man still inside, armed with a handgun. A perimeter was set up and SWAT was activated. Approximately 3 hours later, SWAT discovered a deceased man inside the residence. So this guy's inside this house. He's firing shots. The occupants that were in the house with him that he was firing the shots at got out of the house. They weren't hit. And then he ended up committing suicide. And this is something that happens a lot, the suicides, when they go down as officer-involved incidents, but the perpetrator kills themselves. But it still goes down as an officer-involved incident. So this one, Bakersfield, California, man with a screwdriver acting erratically was shot by law enforcement. No much story about that. Memphis, Tennessee. Okay, this is 43-year-old Melissa Horton. This is actually a female. She was killed by police. And at around 1 p.m. today, our office responded to a domestic violence call where a woman had pulled a shotgun on her fiancé and struck him in the head with the barrel of the gun. He managed to flee the residence without further injury, and she fled the scene prior to the deputies arriving. They didn't see any history of domestic violence in their system for that location. They were able to share details that a woman, the driver, was the only person who was shot. Agents are investigating the circumstances leading to the officer-involved shooting. For reasons still under investigation, as officers approached the vehicle, shots were fired and the driver was struck. So this one's not really telling you what happened other than she had a shotgun. She ended up striking her fiancé with the barrel of the gun, and when police officers located her, they ended up firing on her. But we don't get the full story on that one. In Richmond, Michigan, this guy was killed too. After a 3-hour standoff with the police, the barricaded gunman was found dead. So this guy got in a standoff with the police for 3 hours, and then it ended after he killed himself. A second suicide on just the few that we've gone through. This one happened in Washington, D.C. Delaneo Martin, he was 17 years old. He was shot by police. And this is kind of a weird story. That's a little longer than some of these other ones. Okay, so Park police officer shot and killed a 17-year-old accused of dragging and trapping officers with a stolen vehicle and attempting to flee the scene. The sergeant and officer responded to the area and officers tried to detain the driver of the alleged stolen car. That's Delaneo Martin, but he took off. During the encounter, a USSP officer was trapped in the vehicle and was unable to get out of the car. It's unclear why the officer was inside the vehicle. A second officer was dragged by the vehicle as it fled the scene. The officer inside the car fired their weapon and said after an incident occurred inside the car. The car crashed into a house. Officers immediately rendered aid, but he died at the scene. A firearm was recovered inside the vehicle. So this kid, this teenager, he was sleeping inside a stolen vehicle and then somehow traps a police officer inside the vehicle with him and takes off, dragging another officer along with, and ends up shot and dead in the end. So now we move on to St. Regis, Montana. This one involves a kidnapping. A suspect in an Idaho armed robbery was killed by law enforcement after shooting a hostage near a travel center in western Montana. 2 suspects involved in the Saturday morning robbery in Osborne, Idaho, were seen by witnesses later that day in St. Regis, Montana. 1 suspect was taken into custody without incident. The second suspect took a hostage near the travel center and shot the hostage before the suspect was shot and killed by law enforcement. The hostage was transported to the hospital in Missoula for treatment. The suspect's body was sent to the Montana State Crime Lab for an autopsy. So this guy got shot by the police because he took a hostage and shot the hostage, and police shot him. So you can see that was about 10. That was 9 or 10 incidents. I didn't want to make the video too long. Of just what leads up to these police officers shooting people and fatally shooting people. And those all ranged from March 18th was that last one in Montana, and that first one I did was March 20th. So those were like 10 incidents that happened in just a couple days. So this stuff literally happens every day, multiple times a day. And I get that it's wrong when they shoot somebody that they shouldn't. But so much of this happens these days where people are shooting at the police officers. And 2 of these incidents, by the way, they were suicides. But this happens so much that people are shooting at police or acting, crazy around police and end up getting shot. And the police get blamed for it. But some of the times you wonder, what would you do in the same situation? You have a few seconds to respond to this stuff. And I guess some people are more cut out for that than others. But I thought I'd just share that with you because I saw that video of that moron in the car with the traffic stop. And I don't even know what he was trying to tell the police officers, that beginning video. But I just thought I'd put a few out. I'm trying to do something to bring awareness to how hard a police officer's job is. Because crime in America is so out of control right now, and nobody's doing anything about it. They're actually doing things that make it worse. They're doing things that literally make it worse, and the cops are the ones getting blamed, and they're the only ones trying to stop it. And yes, they make mistakes sometimes. They do. But so often, they're doing the right thing. And I just wanted to put out a video that kind of points out some of this stuff. If this kind of stuff is interesting to anybody, I'll gladly do more of these videos because I think people need to see just how hard police officers' jobs are. I don't know how interesting this stuff is to anybody, but I thought I'd put a video out because I came across that video. Thanks for watching.
The direction that this encounter goes is 100% in your hands.
Sir, Utah Code, United States Code,
Okay.
is a corporate policy
Okay.
in which you have to be contracted and to be required to follow it. Unless
Okay.
you provide me a contract with my wet ink signature on it saying that I'm required to follow it,
Okay.
then there's
So do you want to identify yourself to me, or do you want to go a different route? Wonderful. Do you have a driver license as well?
I am not giving you jurisdiction.
Okay.
Do not
Hand-
stop. Do not detain. You are not allowed to stop me.
Let me see that.
On your list
I
saying
didn't
that
see
you're
what you
allowed
just
to-
tried to show me. Can you show that to me again? Step
If
out
you
of this
try and
vehicle
force
right
me,
now.
Then we're going to have an issue where you're
Step
gonna have
out of
to
the
come
car
on
right
the
now.
Don't step out of the car. We're going to break the window and pull you out.